Okay, so I have some examples of student work. So here's an example of a GIF animation. So remember, for this assignment, you're turning in the Photoshop file so that I can check your layers, make sure you have all the requirements to receive the points. And you're also turning in a finalized form of your animation. So that can be a GIF, or it can be an MP4 video file. So so when I open up the Photoshop file, I'll be able to check that you've used smart objects. I'll see the smart object icons, and I'll be able to check if some of those, so at least one of the smart objects should be a Photoshop smart object. So when I double click on it, it should open into another Photoshop file. And the other smart object that I'm looking for is a vector smart object. So when I double click on that, it should open into Illustrator. This one opens into Photoshop, and then there's another level that opens into Illustrator. That's your proof that you've created original artwork in both Photoshop and Illustrator. So this is the original artwork created in Illustrator. It opened up as a vector smart object. So that the nice thing about that is you can make changes in Illustrator, you save this, you close it, and it updates. So I'm going to be demonstrating more about how that works. But so that's this is the Photoshop file that this student turned in. And the finalized format is the GIF that will play real time. And it's a self-contained file that doesn't need Photoshop to display it. For GIFs will preview like this on a Mac within Finder and column view. But the best way to preview a GIF, once you create a GIF, is to actually open up a browser window, and then you can drag the GIF right into the browser. It doesn't double click to play, usually at least, and then you can watch it play real time in the browser. So this one follows the instructions of the assignment because it includes text. I'm gonna click reload to play it from the beginning. I'd like you guys to think about creating a clear beginning, middle, and end. So one way to do that is to start with a clear space, just a clear frame of nothing, and then have your elements emerge and do something, and then leave the frame or fade out to nothing again. Another way, if you're doing a GIF that's going to play on a loop, is for the beginning frame to be exactly the same as the ending frame so that it's a seamless loop. I would say this one, the start is not quite feeling like you're seeing something from the beginning, right? It's like you're seeing something from the middle, starting with the close-up on the astronaut. It's so just to make sure you have a clear beginning and middle and end, it's good to start with nothing and end with nothing, or start with the same exact frame as the ending frame. So hopefully I'll have time to demonstrate how to do that effectively. Okay, so let's see, another example. This one is an MP4. So where a GIF cannot contain audio, an MP4 can. and I'll be showing you how to export a GIF and export an MP4. You have those two choices for your finalized format for your video. So again, he turned in the Photoshop file so that where I can see the layers. If it has music, audio, I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to be able to hear the audio in the Photoshop file, and that's fine. That's fine because I'm going to be able to hear it in the finalized file format. The MP4 file will contain the audio because when you export the finalized file, it puts all your video and all the layers together with the audio in one file. Here, the audio file is just linked to the location it's stored on the hard drive. It's just linked to the Photoshop file. So I'm not going to be able to, it's telling me when I open this file, cannot locate linked assets. That's fine. I'm just going to say okay. And I can still check the work without having access to the audio within the Photoshop document. That's fine. And then I'll be able to hear it when I play the MP4. So here, let's take a look at this one. So this one doesn't really have a very clear beginning, middle, and end either. Maybe we could argue that that's a fine beginning to have, some kind of image. But I would say, just to be sure that you're creating a very clear beginning, middle, and end, it's best to have a clear frame at the beginning to just start smooth like that. This is a little bit loud. Let me see if I can lower the sound. I'm not sure if you can even hear it because I'm not sharing sound when I did share screen. Tell me if you can hear this. Can you guys hear that audio? What I just played?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Is it too loud? Should I lower it?
It's a little loud.
Okay, let me lower it then. Or I could lower it here too. Okay, so this is a wild, crazy video. Here we go. I like it. All right, so that almost came to a smooth ending. It was just a little abrupt on how the audio stopped. There are ways of fading out audio more gradually. I like the way the fade to black happened at the end, and I like the build up and the kind of choreography of these. I guess they're like scary stuffed animals that come to life in the night. That's what it makes me think of, that when your toys come to life at night and haunt you or something. And then it goes well with the music, and the text pops in like that. I like with this well thought out about the timing with the audio. So it's very, very, very clever. Let's see something else here. This one is a nice animated logo, a GIF. Let me bring up a browser to preview it. It's really nice there. I like that shine that comes through that. That's done with the the use of masks and animating the position of imagery through a mask. So that's a really kind of clean animated logo where image comes in, text, name of the company comes in, and it just unfolds like this. And see the beginning, how it starts with nothing? It would have been even better if it ended with nothing too, but that's fine because actually for this one I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna say for this type of animation, like an animated logo that's a GIF animation, it's fine for this one to just end with the logo and the business name in formation like this, because you can imagine if this were at the top of a website, maybe you would want it to animate in and then just hold like that and be there. So I'm gonna scratch that. Oh, it doesn't have to be clear at the end for something like this, for an animated logo. But I do like the way it started clear at the beginning and then the elements come in one after the other. Simple, streamlined, clean. Doesn't have to be too complicated. Okay, so here is one that is doing a kinetic typography piece. I'm just going to show you the MP4 of this one. And it's doing a good job of for the most part, but there is one glaring mistake, and I like to ask my students when I show this example if they can find the mistake. Okay, I got something in chat. Hi, thank you for signing in, Evan. I'll get you checked in. Okay, so let's see if we can spot the mistake. Here goes. Okay, did anyone spot it? Or should we play it again? Sorry, I didn't. Did someone say something? I had my volume down too low. Did we spot the mistake?
I don't know. Can you repeat that again?
Yes, sure. Okay, let me just get it to a position here. Okay, here. Here goes. Did anyone notice any mistake there in the layout, in the
Are you talking about the beginning where it cuts off big data?
Yeah. Exactly, you got it. Because there's, see how, let me just play that. So, okay, so see how when it comes in, it holds here? This would have been a perfect opportunity to have the text show, the whole text, not be cut off. Because it would give the viewer time to see it and read it. But you never want to create you never want to create a hold frame with text just hanging off the edge, right? make that. I know that he wanted to have room for this guy to transition the face, but and then he wanted, I guess he wanted the text to move in like this, and I guess he thought, oh well, they've had enough time to look at it. But if that were like if he felt like, well, they had enough time to look at big data, then it would have been cleaner just to have big data move all the way off screen completely, rather than looking like it's just spliced off the edge there. But he could have just had it move in, stop, so that the whole thing is pictured, displayed in frame, and then do the transition. That's the main glaring mistake for me. It's, there's a lot to think about, that he, I could see that he's like trying to have enough room here, but I think it would have, maybe if it were a little closer to him, then it might have fit. And then that comes in, and there's a little bit of, I would say everything looks good except, well, for the most part, things look good with the layouts. I would say there's maybe a little bit too much space from they got all the way down to 4S. You don't want to have a lot of empty space in the middle. Of course, he's making room for the little head that's going by, but just a little bit less space there. So you want to think about these layouts that you're creating, and always make sure that text is not getting cut off when you're positioning it at key moments. Like you can have text come in from out of frame onto frame, but whenever you pause it, make a hold frame. You definitely want to have a very clean layout where the text is positioned so it's not hanging off the edge, for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna move on into back into demonstrating this. There are more examples, but it's probably good enough. So I'm gonna close these. Don't save. I also want to open up the assignment just so we can go over that. So let's see if I go to my folder for the class. Tuesday, Thursday, project 4 and 5. So remember, if you haven't gotten project 4 and 5, you can get it from the course on Canvas in files, and download it from project 4 and 5 here. Download, and I've got it already. So I'm gonna open up the project 5 instructions. So be sure to go down the requirement list. So you want to make a Photoshop file, and then render a file, a finalized file by exporting, which I'm gonna go over. Imagery must be original, created in both Photoshop and Illustrator. Use smart objects, both Photoshop and Illustrator smart objects. Must include text. Final length must be between 10 and 30 seconds. Sound is optional, and there is the extra credit of actually uploading your animation online on a website or on YouTube or Vimeo, and sending me a URL link where I can click to see your work live online. Okay, so I'm gonna open up what I started here. Okay, it's already open. And I was just showing you rapid fire how keyframing works. And I put this dog in here. I converted the dog to a smart object. Do you remember why I did that? Does anyone remember? No? Is it all a blur now? So when you have a layer that's just like a regular layer that's a raster layer, like it's just pixels. So I'll make another layer, create a new layer, and I will do something on the layer that's just pixels. So I could do create a circle, and instead of it being a shape layer, let's say I choose pixels to draw out a circle on this layer. So this will be a circle made of pixels. And so I just hold shift and draw out the circle. So this is a circle that's just pixels. So notice, okay, so that puts in a layer where my playhead is. I open this layer up and see what the properties that I have to keyframe. I just have position, opacity, and style. But look, on the dog, I have, instead of position, what do I have? Can anyone tell me? The dog has been converted to a smart object. Does anyone remember how I did that? Just select the layer, right click. See, this is the circle layer. I can select it, I can right click, and I can choose convert to smart object. Why is that? Why is that something that I recommend? Anyone know? Anyone remember? I can't hear you. Make sure you're unmuted if you're talking. Wait, I have, do I have anything in chat? Oh, I muted myself just now. Okay, let's see. Nothing in chat? Come on, people, talk to me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, me. I just don't know.
It's all just a blur. Okay, so look what happens. Okay, so with position, you are limited. Okay, so opacity and style you've got. Position, though, you're limited in what you can do for the animation. You can, with position, you can move the object side to side, up and down, diagonally, but can you scale it over time? Can you make the ball get smaller and look like it's getting further away? Not if it's just a regular raster layer, a layer made out of pixels like this. The dog was like that, but I convert it to a smart object. So watch what happens when I convert this circle to a smart object. You can right click it and choose convert to smart object. Now, instead of position, what do we have? What's there instead of position? Come on, people, tell me.
Transform.
Transform, that's right, thank you. Okay, so now I can do more. So I can keyframe this ball by clicking on the stopwatch. That starts the animation when you click on the stopwatch. I'm going to extend the layer longer so I have more room to work with. It holds the ball into position here, and whatever transformations I've made so far, it holds that information on this keyframe. Then I move the playhead forward and I can have the ball do something else. I can just move like the same as position. I can have the ball move from one place to another. But while I'm on this second keyframe, which I'm going to get to by clicking the arrow to jump my playhead to line up with it, I can make additional changes. So I could scale it. I could do anything that I can do under Edit, Transform, I can animate. So I could do free transform and scale it with Command T on a Mac or Control T on Windows. Or I could choose transform here and I could do all kinds of things, like I can rotate, but with the ball it's not going to make a difference on rotation. I can probably do something cool with distort, or I could flip. That might be interesting. Let's try distort. So I click distort, and then I could probably do this and make it look like it's moving, like it's starting to move in 3D, and then press return, and then I can move the playhead forward, and then I could do that again, edit, transform, distort, and then continue to move. Let's see if that makes it look like it's flipping over. And then press return, and it adds another keyframe. See what that did? It's pretty cool, huh? And then move my playhead forward again, and then go back and do edit, transform, distort, and then just kind of stretch it back down like that. Which it looks like I could maybe adjust the width and the height here to be 100 again. 100. Yeah. That looks good. So it's back to normal, and then I can press return and watch what appears under the playhead when I press return. Another keyframe. So it does this little turn thing. So the circle's moving and it's twirling. You could do like make a book and make it look like the pages are turning that way, sort of, perhaps. So that's pretty cool. But I want to start clean. I want to start fresh to go over everything that I want to go over here. So, like I said, it's good to start with a clear screen, something, just an empty space. So my text, got text in here. I think I'm gonna delete the text for now and show you starting over on text. So I'm gonna select the text layer and just press and actually just click on the trash and delete. Yeah, delete text. And this ellipse, I guess I'll delete it too by clicking the trash, delete. So I'm gonna start with the dog. I kind of like the circle. I might keep the circle, it's kind of fun. Okay, so the dog, I want to get to a place where the dog looks normal. There, with no style applied, and no opacity change. The dog is at 100% here, and I want to just start from scratch on the keyframing. And how might I do that? What's the easiest way to remove all the keyframes? Anyone know? Click on what? I want to just start over and have the dog be at a constant, just be constant right now and not have any changes occurring. All I need to do is place my playhead where I want the dog, where I want the dog to be at as far as properties go, like in position and scale. So this is how I want the dog to look, and I'm just going to click on the stopwatch to remove all the keyframes. You click on the stopwatch and it removes all keyframes and holds the properties at wherever the playhead is for the dog. So now the dog is just constantly at this. Oh my. I'm just going to turn off the visibility on this circle for now so that it doesn't interfere with what I want to talk about. Okay, so remember, I'm going to take it off AutoSelect. Why am I going to take it off AutoSelect? Anyone know why it's not a good idea to keep it on AutoSelect when you're starting out your animation?
You can click on other things.
Because if I put the dog outside, if I put the dog outside of frame and I want to bring the dog back in, it's almost impossible on AutoSelect, because as I'm trying to drag the dog back in, it's this move tool. The move tool is selecting other layers, so it's not allowing me to just select the dog again. So I'm going to take it off AutoSelect, and then I can click outside of the layers or over, or you could click over in any, well, I guess just under the layers. Or let's see if we use Command Shift. No, that doesn't work. Command D. No, I'm trying to find. Oops. I was trying to find. That's interesting. I was trying to find the shortcut to deselect layers, but I didn't find it. Anyway, now I can click on the dog using my layers panel as a remote control to select the dog and then drag the dog in from out of frame, because I don't have auto select on, so I need to use my layers panel like a remote control to select remotely, which is what I want to do so that I can have more control to start with the dog out of frame and bring the dog in frame. Okay, so but before I do all this, what I want to do is do a quick demo on how I might create some simple artwork in Illustrator and then bring it into Photoshop, and this is the kind of workflow I'd like you to use for this. So I'm going to jump into Illustrator now and close this guy's smart object, and I'm going to make a new document in Illustrator. I'm just going to go File New or Command N, and you could choose film and video settings for this that match your settings that you chose in Photoshop. So I'll go with the 1920 by 1080 high definition settings here, 1080. And I'm just gonna call this surfboard. And leave all the default settings, and I'm gonna click create. Maybe I should tidy up my workspace, so I can go workspace and reset my essentials here. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to take the ellipse tool and draw out something to be like a surfboard for the dog. Maybe make it orange, and maybe no stroke for this. And then I'm going to use, under the line segment tool, I'm going to choose the arc tool and click and drag to draw out an arc that touches edge to edge on the surfboard. And let's see, which way is the dog gonna go? Well, I'll think about that later. Maybe the end. Wait, the dog's gonna move. Let me look at my Photoshop. So the dog's gonna go this way. So I guess the surfboard has a point. I'm not an expert at surfing by any means, by any measure. So any surfers here can help me on this. So the front point, I selected it with my direct selection tool, and I can just click convert to make it sharp. I believe that's the shape of a surfboard, starting anyway. And then the arc, I'm going to select that and give that a color of some kind of color, maybe a blue or green color. And I want to just make sure that it's touching edge to edge. I'm going to use my direct selection tool to select the endpoint and just drag the endpoint to snap to the edges, because I want to use a technique that I don't think I ever showed you in Illustrator, which maybe this will be a good time for you to try for this assignment, which is really great technique where you can use overlapping areas of shapes, and in this case a line, to break a shape into two parts where you can give different colors to the different sections. And that tool, it's hiding under the Shape Builder tool. Shape Builder combines shapes, whereas what's underneath does the opposite. Live Paint Bucket will break shapes up based on their overlapping areas. So I'm going to choose the Live Paint Bucket, and I'm going to just, the steps to using Live Paint Bucket are that you have to have your overlapping shapes or objects selected. So I'm just going to select over the board and the arc, and I'm going to take my Live Paint. And Live Paint works really well with your swatches panel. You can choose a color, and you can also use your arrow keys. I'm using my arrow keys now to cycle through to choose different colors. And then I can click and see what it did. Where there was a boundary, where the arc was, it broke the, which used to be one single shape under an arc, is now broken up into separate shapes that I can color separately. So I can use my arrow keys to cycle through and choose different colors for my surfboard. And I can also use a tool that's under Live Paint, like the Live Paint selection tool, to select on the edges, if I want to change the color of the stroke or the weight of the stroke on something, I can do that. So I could do like a different color there, or I could select and add a stroke on the edge, that. Now there's a stroke around the edge. Maybe I'll make that one also green there. Or I could select, I can hold shift and select. You can also select and change the color of the fill too. And I can select the stroke and click none as well. If I don't want a stroke, click none. Okay. So let's say I want to go with that. Well, let me just maybe make this more defined as a dark blue color. Okay, so let's say I want to go with this. And once I'm done with the Live Paint Bucket, then what I want to do is make this, which is a Live Paint group, into just a normal group of shapes. Because right now it's in layers as a Live Paint group, and you can't do as much with it as a Live Paint group. If I want to continue editing it, it will just be a Live Paint group where the two original parts to the artwork exist. But if I go to properties and I click expand, then it changes it into a regular group of objects where the anything that's a stroke, outline are in one group within the group, and all the fills are in another group, with all tucked away in this group of objects that are it's no longer a live paint group, it's regular artwork, regular vectors. Next, I want to go to Effect, and I want to give this a three-dimensional quality. So I'm going to go to Effect, 3D, and I'm going to choose Extrude and Bevel. So it gives it a 3D extrusion. And I want to adjust it by dragging on this cube to reposition it to be more like the position that I want my dog character to ride on it. And rotate it. And then I want to change the extrude depth down to something thinner. Maybe rotate it a little bit more, just so it looks like a board there. You could try maybe I'll make it a little thinner, like 12. Press tab to apply that. I could try putting a bevel on the edge. Oh, but no, I don't think I want to do that. And then, because if you get an exclamation mark, it means that it wasn't able to perform the bevel. So it's too complex of artwork for the bevel. So I'll just say okay to that. Alright, so I'm going to save this and tuck it away in my folder for the class. Save. This isn't a file that you need to turn in or anything, because all I have to do to get this to be in Photoshop is to select the artwork, copy it, edit copy, or Command C or Control C on Windows, and then go into Photoshop and paste it. Edit, paste. Wait a minute, let's try that again. Okay, Command C to copy, and then we go into Photoshop and we should have paste. Yes, Command V to paste, or Control V on Windows. You just use your shortcut, Command V. And definitely you want to paste it as a smart object. That's your proof that you worked in Illustrator. So paste it as a smart object, and don't worry about adding it to your current library. That can take extra time. And just say okay. So it drops it in, and it's vector, so it's in transform mode, so we can scale it bigger and not lose resolution and make it kind of fit the dog here. And I'll go with that, and so when I'm ready, I'll click the check mark, and so this is a vector smart object. That's what it comes in as. I'm going to put it under the dog. What's great about the vector smart object is then if I wanted to make changes in Illustrator, I can just double click on the little vector smart object icon, and it doesn't open it in the original file. See, this is the original file that I named Surfboard. It opens it up in a temporary vector smart object file. And I don't really have access to all the same features not quite all the same features as what is in the original file, because the original file is going to come with the swatches that go along with the preset. Notice the swatches here are gone, but I could always go to libraries and pull up the default swatches for whatever video and film. And then I have swatches. So let's say I want to just change the colors. I could do that with the direct selection tool by selecting. You can see the original shapes or there. I can select, and then I can choose a different color. Oh, that put a stroke on it. That's why it's yellow on the edge. That's kind of cool. But I could choose a different color for the top too. Here. And a different color for over here. Maybe light green. And let's see if I can get the stroke. There's the stroke. Choose a... Oh, that was the fill. Let me go there and turn the fill off. Okay, and then maybe I want to just add something to this with the pen tool. That little fin that goes under. I can draw it right here. Close this shape. Give it a color. And I'm going to send it to the back. Send to back. And I'll just tweak it a little bit. Pull that in just a little bit like that. Something like that maybe, I don't know. And then I'm gonna just save this. I'm not gonna save as or anything. I'm gonna save it, and I can close it now. And then when and that did not change the original file, but when I go into Photoshop, it updates. Hey, the surfboard is transformed now. So that's the Vector Smart Object. You could leave your Vector Smart Object named Vector Smart Object. I could also just name it Vector Smart Object Surfboard for myself. Or I could call it Surfboard AI to indicate this is from Illustrator. But if I see it saying Vector Smart Object, I'll know it's from Illustrator, which is helpful to me. So I appreciate when you label your layers, because you get the points for doing the assignment instruction requirements. Okay, so I want to be able to animate this dog like she's surfing through the scene, but I have a problem here. The surfboard and the dog are separate. But guess what? Another reason to create smart objects in Photoshop is it's a great way to combine layers into one. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. So we've got the dog and we've got the surfboard. I want them to kind of be the same length. Maybe extend them like that. And then I want to select the dog, and I'm going to hold shift and select Vector Smart Object Surfboard. And then I'm going to go to, I can right click, or I can go to Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object, and look what happens. It combines the layer down to one layer now. So when I move this layer with the move tool, they're gonna move together. I could rename this layer just to be more specific. Dog with AI, Adobe Illustrator, surfboard, just to indicate that there is something Illustrator in there. I'll be double clicking on your smart object icons to check, because see, then I go in and I double click on the smart object icon there, and then it will, oh no, my Photoshop crashed, darn it. Okay, thank you for sending us. Okay, crash report here. That's not good. Let's see. So let's do that again. Okay. hopefully this isn't corrupt. Let me check my effect on this. I'm gonna go effect. I think it's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna select the surfboard. Which, oh no, now it didn't retain the changes because those changes only existed in Photoshop, unfortunately. So I'll have to do this rapid fire again one more time. So here we go. I'll just do the little thing here, the little fin. Close and make it red or something. Send it to the back. Pull that now. Okay. Oop. Just pull this handle. Turn it. Need to zoom way in so I can grab that handle. Just adjust it. Okay. So it has its little fin and it's ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna just select all this. Move this over a little bit. Okay, select all this. Command C to copy. And then I'll go into Photoshop and Command V to paste as a smart object. Okay. Scale it up. You don't need to hold shift when you scale up. And then that's a little bit big. Let's do a little smaller. And then I press return. Drops it in. Let me save my Photoshop this time so I don't lose that. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is recovered. This is the recovered file. Okay, so that's why it's making me save it brand new. So this is recovery because I had a little crash here. Okay, so save it. Okay. And I'm going to put the Smart Object board, surfboard under the dog. Adjust the surfboard a little bit lower. Oops, I'm using the wrong tool here. Gotta use the move tool. And now I want to combine the two, so I'll select the dog, shift click on my surfboard, and I'm gonna go to layer, smart object, convert to smart object, and it combines them together as one. Then I'm gonna call this dog with AI board. And I'm gonna just so now because this is a smart object, I can't extend them within this timeline. But what I can do if I decide I want to change the length of anything, and also I'm having a problem because my surfboard disappears because it's shorter actually. So I can double click on my smart object icon and it'll take me into a separate timeline for the smart object where I still have access to the dog separate from the surfboard. So I can move them around separately and reposition if I need to. I want to just extend the surfboard to match the length of the dog. I can even go longer and then have them go out longer here. And then this is inside of the smart object. I can save this, Command S to save on a Mac. Control S on Windows. And then, hey, look, if I wanted to make changes on my surfboard, no problem. There's my smart object. Vector smart object. I can double click on the icon, and where's that going to take me? Illustrator, into the smart object. So I can select and make changes. Like if I want this to be green, I can make it green. Maybe this green. Okay. No, I'm being indecisive. Okay, we'll go with that. So then I save it, and then I go back to Photoshop, and it's green. So that's how you can work back and forth between Photoshop and Illustrator, and within a smart object, make adjustments, and then go back to your main, save, and then close your smart object. Oh, I just want to make sure this is, I guess I didn't save, so I want to save this. The smart object's called a PSB, save, and then now in the main file it's updated. And then I can animate the dog through the scene separately. So I know it's 7:30. I know that's what we're scheduled for. But like always, I like to go till 9 on Tuesday. So if you want to stay for the whole lesson, just so you have all the information now so you can start early, I recommend it. Or you can watch the videos on your own time. Hopefully they all get recorded. And so I can extend this longer now, because I extended it longer within the smart object, and I can start keyframing. So I open the dog layer here, and we'll have a break at 7:45, 10 minutes. And so now I want to keyframe. So I'm gonna take it off AutoSelect, uncheck AutoSelect. Gonna move my dog on board out of frame to start, and I'm gonna click the stopwatch for transform. So I've got a nice clear empty space to start with, and then I move my playhead forward in time, counting up a certain number of frames and seconds. It's at about 5 seconds. That might be too long, maybe less than 5 seconds. You can always zoom in to your, whoops. See, there's a little zoom slider. You can drag on it to zoom in so you can magnify your timeline, because I don't need the dog to go that slow. So maybe 1 second in. So I move my playhead forward about a second, and then I can drag the dog in. Oh, but I have to have the right layer selected. So I select dog on the board, and then I drag the dog in. So now the dog's coming in. And because this is transform, I could do more than just move the dog in the scene. I could also go to edit and use any of these transform options, or free transform. I could just hit Command T for that. Command T, and I could put a little rotation so the dog rotates in, and then press return. So now the dog's gonna be rotating in, and then maybe I want the dog to just kind of pause there but be rotating. So I'll move the playhead forward a duration of time that I want the dog to kind of pause, and I can add a keyframe to create a pause, but I do want to rotate, so I'll hit Command T and then rotate the dog back down, and then press return. So we'll see what that looks like. So the dog comes in, rotates, and then maybe I want the dog to rotate back up again. So I'll hit Command T, rotate up, and then press return. So the dog's like coming in, rotating down, rotating up. Maybe that should happen faster so I can move those together closer. Maybe a little slower. And then I want to move the playhead forward and then have the dog move up. And maybe at this point the dog should look like she's getting further away, so I can hit Command T and scale her smaller. And press return. So now she's coming in, rotating, moving up. And then maybe she rotates down a little bit. I'm gonna hit Command T, and I moved my playhead forward already, and I'm gonna rotate down a little, move her forward a little bit, press return. That adds the next keyframe. Then I can move forward again and then drag her forward and hit Command T and rotate her up again, and then move her out of frame and press return. And so now she's going through the scene, rotating, moving down and out. Maybe space these out so it goes a little slower. And out. Alright, I like that. So I'm going to hit Command S to save that. And so next I want to show you some frame by frame options, because sometimes when you animate with frame by frame animation, it will make the animation more interesting. Actually, before I do frame by frame, let me try something else. I'm gonna add a shape layer. So I'm gonna go to my shape tool here. I'm gonna use the rectangle, and I'm gonna just draw out using shape. I'm gonna draw out a big shape, and if I want this to look like water, I might take my pen tool and add points to the top to create waves. Oops. So I'm just hovering over the edge of the top of the path and adding points, and then I could use my direct selection tool to select the points individually and tug them down to create sort of a look of water on top. Let's do one more. Drag down. And there might be a nice style I could put on this. So I could select it with the path selection tool. And I did create, let's see, I created this one. Let's see what this looks like. So this is one of mine. Or this one. Or I could go into, so this is from the styles panel. I could go into other styles. That's in natural, basics. Let's see, not much in basics. Natural, fur. They used to have more options. Let's try this one. This one. Maybe I'll just change the color overlay on this. So I could I'll just double click on the layer and you can click the plus here. No, that's weird. Cancel. I'm gonna try adding an effect because it's limiting. Well, I have this layer selected. Maybe I want to do gradient overlay. So I guess it lets you add them that way by going to the FX button, and then you can add. Maybe I want to take off color overlay and try a gradient overlay. I need to fix that gradient, give it colors, like maybe choose a blue. Some blues that I want. Something like that. Maybe I'll add another color in there. and change the blue. Okay, so that looks like water enough. Maybe increase this blue. You want more, that's more blue. Okay. And okay, I'll go with that. Okay, so then within that rectangle, which I should just call water on the layer, I can open that up and I can keyframe the position of the vector mask. So I could do that by clicking the, by moving it with the path selection tool down. I like to have everything start out of frame, so I'll start that out of frame. Click the stopwatch on vector mask position to begin, and then I'll, as the dog comes in, I'll have it move up. And then have it move all the way up at a certain point, maybe to there. But I want it to be under the dog, so I'm going to drag it from layers under, so it'll become like a background. So the water will rise and move out, and then I want it to go, I want the water to stay so I can extend it longer. And I might be able to, let's see what happens if I play with position. So if I use, let's see what happens if I click on position here and move forward, and then I use the move tool to change the position. Let's see what happens. It does add another, does work with position too. But I want to see if I deleted the vector mask position, if it will just move the color inside. And maybe I don't like that, so I'll just delete position. But that's all right. Okay, so I'm gonna go with that, and next I want to show you doing some frame by frame animation. So I'm gonna open something I brought here. That would be, and materials. Okay, so I created this fish, and I created this fish with shape layers, but I'm gonna make just a custom brush with it. So I'm gonna take my elliptical marquee tool and draw an ellipse around it, or a circle around it, and adjust it so it's going all the way around the fish. And then I'm gonna just go, let's see, edit, define brush preset, I'll call it fish, say okay, and then in my animation I can have a fish come in.